If you felt emotional when you saw the banner open for Victor Osimhen before the Galatasaray versus Liverpool match, then you need to hear this story from the very beginning. Because before the stadiums, before the millions, before the goals that shook Europe, there was a boy running through the traffic of Lagos trying to sell water for a few cents. And sometimes the football boots on his feet weren't even the same. One was Nike, the other Puma. One was size 40, the other 38. My name was never supposed to be known. The fact that you are reading these words right now almost feels like a blessing from God. When my mother died, I was probably 2, maybe 3 years old. I was too young to remember anything except being in her arms. My 6 siblings and I grew up in a single-room home in a slum in Lagos called Osimhen. Maybe you have heard of it. It sits right next to one of the largest dump sites in Africa. They say around 10,000 tons of garbage are dumped there every single day. Chemical waste, broken televisions, toxic electronics, and everything you can imagine. That place, believe it or not, was my backyard. When I started playing football and needed boots, the only thing my friends and I had to do was dive into that massive landfill and start digging. Maybe after an hour you would find one boot. Left foot, size 40. If you were lucky, you might find another one somewhere else. Right foot, size 38. Sometimes it wasn't even the same brand. One Nike, one Puma. On days like that, we felt lucky because at least we had something to wear. We would share them and take turns using the pair. After my mother died, my father started washing dishes in the kitchen of a police station. Even then, he couldn't earn enough to pay the rent. I remember one night when I was about 12 years old, our landlord suddenly cut the electricity. 7 of us were sitting in that one small room in complete darkness. No television, no light, nothing. I walked outside and sat near the swamp beside the dump. I looked up at the sky and asked God how a child could live like this. Around that time, I completely stopped playing football because my family needed help just to survive. My sister sold oranges on the streets of Lagos, not in a market, but right in the middle of traffic. Lagos traffic is famous. Kids stand by the road holding food or drinks and run between the cars when the lights turn red. I was very fast, so selling bottled water suited me perfectly. I would balance a crate of 12 bottles on my head and wait for someone to honk their horn. Then before the light turned green again, I would sprint toward the car with everything I had. Every time I ran, I told myself I would be the fastest kid they had ever seen. The strange thing is that I actually enjoyed it. It felt almost like training. My older brother Andrew carried the heaviest burden. He woke up at 3 in the morning to sell sports newspapers on the streets. Sometimes he brought one home. I would stare at the cover where players like Didier Drogba or Zlatan Ibrahimovic were printed and look at them as if they lived in a completely different universe. For me, football was just something I could squeeze into, the few moments when I wasn't working, and most days I had to work all the time. If there was a job that could bring even a little money, I was there. Once I even appeared on television. It was a family quiz show, and at the end, they invited someone from the audience to compete. Somehow they picked me. I did really well and I won 10,000 naira. It was the largest amount of money I had ever held in my hands, although it was only about 6 euros. The next day at school, my friends laughed at me. Yesterday you were on television, today you're selling water in the street, and now you're back here in class. But I didn't care. I was a kid who had decided to survive. As long as it was legal, I would do any job. Sometimes the work was terrible. There is something called a dry well, a pit where rainwater and waste collect. Sometimes someone has to climb down with a ladder and clean it. One man stays above for safety and keeps checking if everything is okay. I wasn't the man above. I was the one inside the hole. When I was 15, I was playing football with my friends when one of them said that the Nigerian national under-17 team would be coming to Lagos. I immediately asked where the trials would be. The place was about 90 minutes away by bus, and I had no money at all, so I had to hitch rides. In Lagos, we have yellow minibuses called Danfo. The drivers are crazy, but if they see a child who clearly has nothing, they sometimes allow you to jump in and sit on someone's lap. That's how I traveled. Half an hour sitting on a stranger's knees, then another minibus, then another, until I finally reached the stadium. There were at least 300 kids there trying to impress the coaches. The crowd was so big that we barely touched the ball. They simply made everyone run and eliminated the slow ones. I ran like my life depended on it. At the end of the day, someone told me to come back the next day. This continued for months. Finally, we were allowed to play with the ball. I played so well that I believed I had made it. After 3 months, only 30 players remained. They gathered us and read 27 names. Only 3 players were eliminated. I was one of them. I begged the coaches for an explanation, but they just told me it was a technical decision. On the way back home, I was sitting on someone's lap in a minibus again, and I started crying uncontrollably. The man asked what was wrong. I told him it was a long story. He insisted, so I finally said that I was a footballer, or at least I was trying to be one. Most kids would have given up at that point. But my love for football was too deep. I kept training on my own. Months later, someone told me that the national team would return to Lagos again. When I arrived this time, there were around 600 players. The head coach took the microphone and said it was impossible to watch everyone that day. Then he said something else. In 2 weeks, they would be in Abuja, and if you truly believed you were good enough, you should come find him there. Abuja was 9 hours away, and I had no car. But 2 weeks later, I was standing at the stadium gate in Abuja anyway. There were hundreds of players again. The first day, I didn't even step on the field. On the second day, one of the coaches finally pointed at me and told me to go onto the pitch. I had 15 minutes to change my life. I knew the only way to impress them was to run without stopping. I ran until my lungs burned, and somehow I managed to score 2 goals in those 15 minutes. When the coaches read the selected names later that day, my name still wasn't among them, and I thought my dream was over again. As I was slowly walking away from the stadium, I heard someone shouting from the parking lot, calling the boy in the green shirt. I turned around and saw a few kids waving at me. One of them told me the coach wanted to see me because the team doctor had said that the player who scored 2 goals was me. I ran back inside shouting that it was me. The doctor pointed at me and held 2 fingers in the air to show the 2 goals. Those 2 fingers saved my life. After I joined the national team, everything started changing very quickly. The next year, we went to the Under-17 World Cup in Chile, and I played the tournament of my life. I scored 10 goals in 7 matches and won the Golden Boot. Nigeria became world champions. When I returned home, they gave me prize money. It felt like I had become a millionaire, even though it was only a few thousand euros. I immediately called my sisters and told them we were leaving that single room and moving into a 2-room house. A few years later, when I signed for Wolfsburg, I saw an amount of money I had never imagined before. I remember refreshing my banking app again and again. Refresh, still poor. Refresh, still poor. Then suddenly the number changed, and it was so big that it looked fake. I started jumping around the house like a madman. Only 2 years earlier, I had been selling water on the streets for 10 cents a bottle, and now the screen on my phone showed 1 million. I fell to my knees and thanked God. But life doesn't stop testing you. When I was playing for Lille, my father's health began to fail. During the first days of the COVID pandemic, he was taken to the hospital. Flights were canceled and airports were closing. I begged my manager and the club to let me fly to Nigeria. Every hour I kept calling them, asking for permission, while my father's condition got worse. One morning I woke up and saw 20 missed calls from my family. I called my brother back and he told me my father was gone. He turned the camera toward him and told me to say goodbye. I completely lost control. I threw my phone and destroyed everything in the house. Neighbors rushed in after hearing the noise and tried to calm me down. One of them stayed with me for 6 hours because they were afraid I might do something stupid. What hurt the most was knowing that all of my father's children and grandchildren were there beside him when he died, except for me. When I left Lille, I felt like a lost soul, but when I arrived in Naples, I found myself again. The city, the fans, and my teammates helped me rebuild my life. Our coach, Luciano Spalletti, treated me like a father would. If I made a mistake, he would grab my shirt and shout. But I could always feel that deep inside he believed in me. He believed I could become one of the best players in the world. During the 2022-23 season, everything finally came together. When players like Kvaratskhelia and Kim joined the team, people started realizing something special was happening. Our football was incredible. In Naples, when things go well, even the grandmothers come to watch training. First, the young ultras appear, then the fathers join them, then the grandfathers. And when you are really at the top, you even see grandmothers in wheelchairs arriving at the training ground, telling you they are praying for you. When we finally won the league after 33 years, the city exploded with joy. Only then did I understand what we had done, when I saw the emotions in the eyes of the people of Naples. One fan showed me a video of Diego Maradona playing in the 1980s, and through a translator, he told me that even after 1,000 years, people in Naples would still remember my name. Later, when I decided to go to Galatasaray, many people thought I had gone crazy. Even my agent told me it was not a smart move, but I make my decisions with my heart. After feeling that passion in Naples, how could I go somewhere ordinary just for money? I wanted to go somewhere where football meant everything to the people. When I landed in Istanbul in the middle of the night, there were 3,000 Galatasaray fans waiting for me at the airport. They had tracked my flight and welcomed me with open arms. No amount of money in the world can measure a feeling like that. Years ago, when I won the Golden Boot at the Under-17 World Cup, a journalist asked me what I wanted to achieve now that everyone knew my name. My answer today is exactly the same as it was back then. I want to leave a mark on history and inspire kids who grow up like I did. There are millions of them, kids who have to work just to find their next meal, kids selling water in traffic, kids searching through trash hoping to find something valuable. I want to be able to look at them and say something simple. Hey you, the kid wearing 2 different boots, one Nike and one Puma, one size 40 and the other 38. Yes, brother, once upon a time I was you, and by the grace of God I made it. My story is living proof that even if your life begins in the middle of a swamp, your name might still be remembered 1,000 years from now.